What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Tattoo Preacher podcast. This is episode 16. I hope you are all doing well today. On this episode, what I want to look at and talk about and process with you is the subject of music and the supernatural, and how, especially in today's culture and in today's music industry, how music is way more powerful and way more influential than I think people understand or even care to understand. And especially from a Christian perspective, how music, for good or for bad, can influence your everyday life, can influence your everyday walk with God. And so it's a subject that has been on my mind and my heart. I'm passionate about it because I've seen the effects of it in my own life and in those close to me. And so that's what I want to talk about. So if that interests you, you're going to want to stick around for episode 16. But before I get there, I did want to quickly mention right off the top, as I usually do, social media plug time. If you haven't yet followed me on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube, you can find me at The Tattooed Preacher. All the links will be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. I post regularly, post pretty much daily, so go hang out with me there. And also, if you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, if you could leave me a sweet 5-star review, that would help me out. Drop a comment. That would just give me some algorithm juice to push my podcast out into the vast landscape of podcasts that are out there. So that's my social media plug. We appreciate it. Thanks for all the support, for everyone who does engage, who's followed, who's subscribed. Super appreciate it. Couldn't do any of this without you. But for those of you who haven't, now's your time. So you're going to want to do it. But with that being said, sit back, relax, enjoy the episode. So music and the supernatural. So what I want to do is just share briefly my journey with music, and then kind of work my way into today. But growing up, I grew up in a Christian home. So especially in my younger years, 80s, early 90s, we had old school Pentecostal rules. So we weren't allowed to do a lot of things. So secular music was definitely not something that was in our household a lot, or if any. The music that we were allowed to listen to at that time was Christian music, which, to be honest, 80s Christian music, 90s Christian music, whether it's worship music or whether it just was random Christian bands, wasn't the best. Very unappealing, at least to me. And so there wasn't a lot of draw there. So as a result, I never really cared too much about music. Even like in school with my friends, and even with my sisters or my cousins, or I felt like people had a lot more passion about music than I did. They'd collect CDs, they'd have favorite bands. They were just always wanting to listen to music and talk about music. And for me, I was always just more sports. And that was pretty much it. Music was not something that I really cared about, was passionate about, or listened to a lot of. Literally growing up from, obviously, birth to when I was about 17. Didn't really care. But then when I was 17, I got saved. Fully gave my life to Jesus. My walk with him became real. It became the most important relationship in my life, dedicated my life to Jesus. And so at that point, music had a bit more hold on me, but it was like 99% worship music. But that time it was 2000, 2001. Christian music definitely was on the upswing. So there was a lot more better music that at least I thought was better and that I enjoyed. So listened to a lot of worship music. But then, as a lot of teenagers, late teens do, began to, you know, listen to certain music that, how do I say it, helped, or listen to certain music that was geared around what I was going through, right? And so this is when I branched out a little bit more into music, the music that I probably shouldn't have listened to. So here's some examples. My parents got divorced. I had a lot of relationships that did not end well. And so when you have heartbreak, you have a lot of anger, you're just dealing with stuff. You tend to gravitate to music that kind of helps feed your emotions. And so I'd still listen to worship music, but, be honest, sometimes it just didn't do it. And so sometimes when you're feeling angry, you had to put in some Eminem. Or I went through uh punk rock phase, a lot of emo stuff. I even went through like a dance music phase. And so again, just depending on the mood that I was in, emotions that I was going through, things I was dealing with, the only time I would branch away from Christian music was when stuff was happening and I needed something other than worship music. And so, but all of that being said, I still wasn't like having all these CDs and, downloading. I think at that point, I forget there, because Apple Music wasn't even a thing yet. So I forget the music platform that was before Apple Music came out, but where you could download lots of music. But even that, like I had friends playlists, and I remember, and I just never did that. So I had worship music on, but again, just never was music crazy. And then as I got older, to my late 20s and 30s, my love for worship music, it kind of went to a different level. And so, I completely lost interest in secular music, regardless of what I was going through as I got older, and then became a lot more passionate about worship music. But then, and here's the interesting part that I really want to focus on now, is as I got older, I began to, especially in my 30s, began to really look at and started hearing more and more about the occultic nature of the music industry when you're looking at Hollywood. And this is when I was introduced to subjects like the Illuminati and secret agendas of the elites to basically push out garbage to the masses so as to control, so as to impact, so as to influence. And the more I kind of investigated that, the more I just began to feel like so uneasy. And I began to just sense behind the music the darkness and the evil that's there. And so that's what pushed me kind of away from secular music more and more. But then I began to see the effects of it that it can have on the people around me. Because again, I never was hardcore into secular music, but I knew people that were, Christians that were. And when you start listening to the stuff that's out there and the stuff that was being pushed, and then you start, I've always had a conspiracy theory, conspiratorial, I don't know if that's a word, bent. And so when you go down that road and you start seeing a lot of these different things and you start putting pieces together, man, it was dangerous. And the impact that music can have on your soul, on your emotions, on your mind, on your thoughts, and seeing Christians, sing out and blast out music that was just nonsense and garbage. And so, you saw, or at least I began to see the negative reality to it. But so many people are blind and are still numb to this reality. And then when you look at, I mean, like this, the last 10 years, and you see the rapid decline of music and the vulgarity and the overt sexual nature, and then just the crazy satanic influence that's not even hidden anymore. Like way back mid 2000, like early 2000s, mid 2000s, even into the 2010s, there was, again, down the conspiracy theory trail, there's all the symbolism, all the imagery that you could debate over what's the actual meaning of it, and there was all that stuff, right? I don't need to go into all the symbolism. You all know what I'm talking about. But now it's not even hidden anymore. It's not even like symbolism. It's like overt satanic stuff, wide open, uninhibited. And when you look at the performances, the visual component to music videos or concerts or set design, like not even the words themselves, but you look at the performers and the musicians, it's like some of the stuff is unbelievable. And you see the transformation from certain musicians when they first came into the industry, and over a number of years, you see how they are now. I mean, here are just some examples. I mean, you saw this when, I mean, I think I did a podcast on this, or at least a YouTube video about this, but Sam Smith at this past year's Grammys, and that crazy performance, that satanic driven, occult centered performance. But when you saw him when he first came in, and I saw a bunch of comparisons when he first came on the scene and what he looked like, what he sang, to where he is now, and you're just like, it's night and day. And then he did, I think, his latest music video, the complete, I'm not even gonna go into that, but crazy transformation from where he was to where he is now. You have Demi Lovato, that image of her lying on that cross. I think it was her CD cover or her album cover from her latest album. And you see like just the complete and utter disregard for the cross and that mocking kind of spirit behind it. And then you have Lil Nas and his complete satanic imagery. And I was trying to find images of that, and the stuff that I saw, I'm like, I couldn't even look at it anymore. Is disgusting. It was not even just beyond disgusting. It's like scary to look at, to have those images in your head of the complete satanic, demonic. And when he first came out to what he's doing now, and the overt satanic push, it's not even like they're not even hiding it anymore. And you have Taylor Swift and this rise in witchcraft in all of her, especially her concerts and her set design and things that happens. And then you have, again, a bit old school, but you got Beyonce, Jay-Z, you have Rihanna with all the symbolism and the imagery and all the satanic stuff that they push in their music videos. It's like all of that stuff, it's not hidden anymore. It's out in the open, and millions upon millions upon millions of people see this stuff, are witnessing this stuff. And what you do with music, right, is music is not just something that you intellectually think about. It's like music gets into your soul. It gets into your emotions. It gets into the core of who you are, and it affects you. And so you got millions and millions and millions of people all over the world, tens of millions, who are opening themselves up to all this junk that's out there. It's not even hidden, and they are absorbing it, and they're going to these concerts, and they're being a part of these, live ceremonies, these live rituals, these live events that are so utterly demonic and then they're singing back the song, singing back the words, and they're all together in unison. And it's like it's the ground zero for opening yourself up to the demonic realm. And it's plaguing people's minds, emotions, heart. It will affect your decisions. Again, I mean, I even saw this on a small scale growing up, right? You gravitate to music based on your mood. If I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling whatever, put in this music, put in that music. Well, this is like that, but on steroids. And the rage, the violence, the overt sexual nature, it's so dangerous. And especially from a Christian perspective, Christians who love Jesus, but who are naive or who are numb to what's going on, and they're opening themselves up to darkness and the darkness of the supernatural realm. And so obviously, like, this video is more geared towards Christians and how this can affect your walk with God. When you're allowing this stuff to come in on the inside and you're entertaining this nonsense, this garbage, it's going to affect your walk with, it's going to affect your spirit. See, when music and when you do study and you kind of go dive a bit deeper into this whole realm, into this whole world, I should say, of music, you'll discover that when certain songs, because artists have even admitted to this, but when music is being written, when certain songs are being composed, they're actually being done in satanic rituals and ceremonies. Like, think about that for a second. The atmosphere, the inspiration for a lot of these songs that are pushed out to the masses, that Christians are embracing, that Christians are singing along with, are being composed, are being written literally in live satanic rituals and ceremonies. And they're all in that environment doing stuff that your mind couldn't even comprehend if someone were to tell you the kind of stuff that goes on. But that's a whole other subject for a different podcast. And so you have all of this insanity happening, all of this demonic stuff happening, and these songs are being birthed in that kind of environment, and then they're being pushed out to the world, and the world's just eating it up. Christians as well. Like, when you stop and think about it, it has to change how you view music, how and what you listen to. When you understand that that's the environment that this stuff is being done in, and then when you listen to music, it gets on the inside of you, and it's going to affect you. It's going to change you. It's going to leave its imprint in you. It's impossible not to. And then it influences you, and then from sex to violence to drugs to literally opening yourself up to demons coming in, taking residence within you. This stuff is legit. It's powerful. It's kind of like music creates portals into your soul. This is why I think one of the main ways that the devil tries to, impact the world is through music, because it's powerful. Because it's not just something that, it bypasses logic and reason. You put a certain melody, a certain tune, certain rhythm together, and it's been birthed, and there's a spiritual component to that, birthed in a demonic atmosphere that gets into you. And then it doesn't really matter about the words, because when you look at some of the lyrics to songs that have been written over the last number of decades, and you actually read the lyrics, it's like some of the stuff is like, how are people singing this? People will be singing the craziest things, but you don't really think about what you're singing when you're in that environment with lots of people singing, and it's loud music. It sounds good, and it seems fun, and you've bypassed your kind of mental capacity, and it's getting it on the inside, and it doesn't really matter what you're saying anymore because you're feeling it. That's what it does. And when it's demonic in nature, that's how you open yourself up to darkness. And so for me, for years now, and this is just me, this is just my convictions, this is my personal choices that I've made. It's rare that I listen to the radio. Rare. If I listen to the radio, I'm listening to talk radio. And I'm more into politics and that kind of thing. I'm not listening because I can't listen to the music. Because another reason is that, for whatever reason, I'm able to sense the spiritual stuff behind the music. And so when I listen to something, I don't just hear and listen to the lyrics and like, oh, that sounds stupid, but I can sense the evil behind it. And so it's just like, I've been around that, I've experienced that, and I can't allow that stuff into me. It's again, it's nothing to do necessarily with the words or has nothing. It's just that I can sense the demonic stuff behind the song. And that's why it's dangerous, because not everyone can sense that. And I have blinders in other areas. This is not about me having some crazy gift or I'm some kind of a super Christian or blah, blah, blah. No, I have my blinders in other areas. But for whatever reason, in this particular area, God has given me, I think, the ability to discern. And that's why I'm passionate about this. And that's why I want to talk about it, because I know that it's real and I can sense it and it affects people and it impacts people. And I'm not saying that every single song that's secular on the radio or on an album is demonic. I'm not saying that that's a gross exaggeration, but I'm saying a lot of it, the majority of it, is at least the stuff that gets put on the radio, like that makes it to mainstream, makes it to that level of influence in our culture. The majority of that level stuff is garbage, and it's rooted in a demonic foundation that you should not be allowing into your life. And so I want to encourage you, if you're Christian, especially if you're Christian, like, consider what you're listening to. And if it's not godly, if it's full of junk, full of stuff that God hates, probably shouldn't listen to it. Now, on the flip side, I do want to say this. This is why, because I said music is powerful both for good or for evil, good or for bad. And so the flip side, this is why godly music is powerful, because it can lead you into encounters with God. And I've experienced so many moments, life-changing moments, where I either be in church or even by myself in my room, where I'm spending time with God and there's worship music playing and the presence of God just is drawn into the room through music that's lifting him up, through music that has been inspired, been composed in an atmosphere of worship in God's presence. Not every song that's written by a Christian is like, how do I say, will rock your world. But that's where there's certain songs, certain albums, certain whatever, that when you listen to that song or when you listen to that album, it does something to you, because it's like God's on it. His presence is on it. And when you listen to it, when you sing it, it inspires you. God invades that space. He invades your space and you are drawn into his presence. And to me, there's nothing greater in this world than when you encounter God's presence. It's like I look back over my life into these moments where I've had with God. And in those moments, they're moments that you wish would last forever. It's like gives you a glimpse of heaven, a taste of heaven, and you just don't want them to end. When you sense his presence, when you sense he's near, it's like becomes more real than the air that you breathe. And pretty much every single time I've had an encounter with him in that way, worship music was a part of it. And so it's powerful. And so to close, because I don't want to keep belaboring the point here, I could go on and on about this, but I'm not going to make a statement where I need to say, you all need to listen to Christian music only and that you need to stay away from secular music. I can make a case. I can tell you about the satanic stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I can give you all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is between you and God. It's between you and God. And so the one thing I will ask, and one thing I will say though, is that you need to have a chat with God about the kind of things, stuff that you listen to, and if it's affecting your walk with Him. Let God tell you yes or no to something. Invite Him into it. Some of you have maybe never even thought of doing that. You never thought ever of inviting God into a discussion about what music you listen to. But I promise you, if you invite God into that space, He'll tell you. He'll talk to you. If you invite God, if you say, hey God, is this cool if I listen to this? Do you feel dishonored when I listen to this? He'll tell you. And so I encourage you to spend some time with Him, ask Him, dialogue with Him, let Him show you the kinds of things that you are listening to. And this applies to things that you watch as well. There are certain shows. I mean, this applies to kind of all of entertainment, all of media, but there are shows where I literally, there was a point in my life where I could watch it and now I can no longer watch it. Certain movies, certain TV shows that, I'll be put on Netflix, hear all this great reviews about this show, put it on, and all of a sudden you see something and I'm just like, can't do it. But I've cultivated that relationship, that kind of connection with God. And so now I know. It's like I can tell when if there's stuff that God's cool with, that God's not cool with. And again, everyone is different as well. Everyone's got different conviction levels, and that's why there's not a one size fits all. But when it comes to our topic today, when it comes to music, there is a line that I think a lot of Christians cross, and they don't know that they're crossing it. And it's important that we invite God into that discussion, into that part of our lives. But we are so much more impacted and influenced than we realize. Music is powerful. It's powerful. The enemy uses it as a weapon to harm us, to influence and impact culture for evil. And we got to be careful. We got to be more vigilant. We got to be more discerning to the kind of stuff that we are listening to. I want to conclude with this verse from the Apostle Paul when he was writing to the church at Philippi. He says this, it's Philippians 4 verse 8. He says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I love this verse because it goes after not only our mind, but it goes after your heart and your soul. It goes after your very emotions. And this is where we feel and experience music. And so Paul is exhorting through the Holy Spirit to only allow things that are true, that are honorable, that are righteous, that are just, that are right, that are commendable, that are pure, that are lovely. Only allow those things on the inside. And so use that as your guide when you're listening to stuff. Is what you're listening to pure? Is it commendable? Is it honoring? Is it honorable to God? And when we are led by that, we will protect ourselves from all the garbage and the stuff that's out there that the enemy has designed to use to influence you and impact you for the negative, to take you out. So be on guard. Well, that's it for episode 16. I hope that this made sense to you. I hope that it benefited you in some way, that you got something out of it. I hope that God spoke to you through it. Again, this is something that I think is very important, that I'm passionate about, that I think it impacts and affects so many people more than we realize. And so I encourage you, spend time with God and have Him show you the kind of things that He wants you to take out of your life that you are listening to, because it's affecting your walk with Him. Again, as always, follow me on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at The Tattooed Preacher. Leave me a sweet review on Apple Podcasts. If this is where you're listening to it, have an awesome rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Much love, and God bless.